and I started kind of looking around and just watching everyone. And adults move too, right? You'll notice next time you're at like kind of a big group meeting, look around and just notice, and everyone's fidgeting and moving, right? Nobody can sit still perfectly the whole time. So I realized if adults can't even sit still, why am I expecting my 5-year-old student to? Hey there, I'm Katherine Barker, and in this video, I'm going to be teaching you how not to have impractical behavior expectations of your students. There are really 3 areas that I see impractical behavior expectations can kind of creep in. And I'm drawing from personal experience on all 3 of these. These are areas I've personally struggled with, and I honestly have to keep coming back to them and reminding myself to have more practical expectations. So the first area is with student listening. So sometimes we can have the expectation that our students should be sitting and listening for long periods of time. And that's just not realistic to expect that of our young kiddos. We kind of are thinking that they are able to sit and listen as long as like adults can sit and listen, and they're just not really made for that. Their bodies are really meant to move and explore and really kind of learn their environment through play and exploration. That doesn't mean that we don't want to teach them how to actively listen, but we want to remind ourselves that we need to have the expectation that they can really only actively listen for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on your age group. I have found that it's really 5 to 10 minutes, and then they kind of get really antsy. And even in that 5 to 10 minutes of active listening, it's also helpful to kind of sprinkle in some like think, pair, share, so that way they're turning and they're talking to their neighbor, and you're kind of pulling answers from the kiddos. So that way there's not, it's not just direct instruction and you're just talking to the kids. We want to really involve them in the lesson that you're teaching. So we want to remember short bursts of active listening followed by like think, pair, share, and kind of talking with their friends or sharing with you and getting some movement and some wiggles out. And that kind of takes me into my second area where behavior expectations can be impractical, and that is student movement. So when I first started teaching, I had just kind of this idea that for some reason I just thought kiddos need to sit in their little square that I give them and they really shouldn't move much. And I remember when I did my student teaching, and I remember sitting and watching all the kiddos, and they were constantly like wiggling and moving and doing, and I noticed my master teacher never did anything about it. And I was like, interesting, I think they need to sit more quietly, right? And I'm embarrassed to say this, but when I really introduced my behavior management systems and I was using positive reinforcement, I was always rewarding the kiddo that was sitting like super still and quiet. And which at times you can do that, but I kind of overdid it. So I realized that I was misusing my reward system, and I had to kind of go back and make some adjustments with how and when I was giving rewards. I actually have a great episode on student rewards that really dives into this even further, so be sure to check it out after this. It's called Are Rewards Even Good for Students? So over time, I realized that I had this unrealistic expectation of expecting my students to sit and never really move. They just can't help it, right? Their little bodies need to move. And I also noticed when I was at, I think it was like a staff meeting or something, or some sort of conference, and I started kind of looking around and just watching everyone, and adults move too, right? You'll notice next time you're at like kind of a big group meeting, look around and just notice, and everyone's fidgeting and moving, right? Nobody can sit still perfectly the whole time. So I realized if adults can't even sit still, why am I expecting my 5-year-old student to? I allowed movement on the carpet as long as it didn't disrupt them from learning and it didn't disrupt other students from learning. Keeping your hands and feet to yourself and not touching other students and doing something that's distracting you from learning, but movement and wiggling. Maybe sometimes if I had kiddos that really needed to stretch their legs, I would strategically place them on the carpet where they could kind of stretch out more. So not expecting your students to sit still the whole time is really important. The third area of having impractical expectations is with self-control. I was kind of thrown off when I went into early childhood education and I saw for the lack of better word, kind of the meltdowns and the tantrums that would happen with young students. I was kind of shocked by the student conflict that would happen as well. So the fighting and maybe like knocking a friend's tower down or hitting, so much hitting, or just general arguing and fighting and not getting along. Again, I started to realize this is normal for this age. Young kiddos especially are still just learning how to regulate their emotions, and they're really learning how to have conflict resolution, and they're still kind of working out what it looks like to not kind of have that egocentric kind of view on the world anymore, right? So we want to have tools and strategies in place to really help those students when those moments arise. As you may know, I'm a big believer in social emotional learning, and I find that teaching those social emotional learning skills and teaching conflict resolution skills and students learning their emotions can really be helpful. We obviously want to have the standard of this is what is expected in the classroom. We want to see these types of behaviors, but we're not going to be shocked, horrified, outraged when students don't show those behaviors, when students do struggle with emotional outbursts, and when they do struggle with fighting and conflict. We should just expect those behaviors and just have a system in place of how we're going to respond when they do come up. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. So the 3 areas that are most common to have impractical behavior expectations are student listening, student movement, and students constantly showing self-control. We obviously always want to have high standards for our students and expectations, but we also want to be realistic and know that they are still little humans and that they are still learning how to be and exist in this world. And be sure to check out my video, Are Rewards Even Good for Students?, where I dive into the do's and don'ts of giving student rewards. All right, that's it for now, my friend. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, happy teaching.